The Metro on 1019 WDET. I'm Tia Graham. And for decades, arts and culture was ingrained in public school curriculums from kindergarten through high school. Woodshop, cooking classes, and of course, art classes were standard. In recent years, art programs have thinned out a bit. But educators who work within the K-12 school system who support the arts argue it's essential to a well-rounded education, helping create more open-minded and empathetic people. Megan Collins is a museum educator for K-12 and family programs at Michigan State University Broad Art Museum and a professor of art education in the school's Department of Art, Art History, and Design. In 2024, she was named the 2025 Museum Educator of the Year by the Michigan Art Education Association. Megan joins us now to talk a little bit more about the importance of a strong arts education in schools. Megan, welcome to the Metro.
Good morning, Tia. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So you were nominated by a peer for the 2025 Museum Educator of the Year. What did it mean to you to receive that award?
That award was, a really big honor. First of all, this is my state association that I kind of grew up being a part of as a young educator. And it really meant a lot for a peer to say, hey, I think what you're doing is pretty special and I'd like other people to pay attention to it.
Yeah. So, Megan, when you began your teaching career, you began as an art teacher for middle and elementary school students. And during those early years, what were some of those early indicators that art education in Michigan could take a different shape?
Yeah, it was probably about 17 years ago, I'd say, or so, that I started in the classroom. And I was noticing some of the real advantages to having a regular art program for the kids. So I would see, all of the children in the elementary school and then many years in a row watching them grow. And I started to notice some kids might be having trouble in the rest of their school day, but art class was really kind of a safe haven for them and a place where their peers could see them in a more positive light, excelling, being creative, taking chances, and really being recognized for all the things that creativity can bring out that might not be visible during a lot of the rest of the school day.
And what were some of the questions you began to ask yourself when you were a teacher about what kids needed versus the way society structures its approach to arts education?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because we say arts education matters, but it's also important what kind of arts education they're getting, right? So just having, I've heard a YouTube video of an art lesson and kids are following along. That might be fun, but they're not learning some of the things that we really hope are happening in a high quality arts program, like problem solving, seeing multiple perspectives. Coming up with your own idea of what to make is a really valuable experience for everyone, and can really lead to adults who maybe are more creative or more willing to listen to other people's points of view, and have, more self-confidence.
Yeah. And Megan, let's talk about some of your work and why you believe the arts are important for K through 12 kids. You're guiding the next generation of teachers through art education. What kind of programs have you developed for teachers to help support the furthering of arts education within Michigan?
Through my work at the MSU Broad Art Museum, we've developed a teacher professional development network. It's called Global Art for Curious Educators, and that serves any K through 12 teacher, within Michigan who can get up here to East Lansing a few days during a semester. And some undergraduate students participate in this as well as professional development. So this kind of program is born out of my hope that art will make its way into more classrooms and that more teachers will see art as an opportunity for, deeper engagement, more sustained engagement, having their students think more broadly about the world and kind of their global mindset. So in particularly this global art program, teachers are learning how to use an artwork from the Art Museum's collection that's by a contemporary artist who lives somewhere else in the world other than the United States. And they find a way to integrate it into their course curriculum. And it's been a really strong well-supported program for 5 years. I'm really happy to say like almost, I think 100 teachers have done it, which is
Wow.
pretty exciting. And it's really neat to know that we're making a difference then out in 100 classrooms. Um, because I've heard many teachers say they're still using these ideas even after they've kind of, graduated.
Yeah. So let's dive into the educators network as well. Most people would assume it's easy being an art teacher for K through 12 students, just throw them some crayons, some color pencils and call it a day. But as you're saying, it takes more. It's more well-rounded and it's more aspects to teaching art within these spaces. So what goes into being an art teacher today in the state of Michigan?
Oh yeah, it is a lot of training and hands-on experience to be a successful art teacher who can really reach the kids in their classroom. It is a lot more than just throwing out the art supplies. And so yeah, let's break those stereotypes. So art teachers are thinking about the students in their classroom and building relationships with them. Sometimes that might mean they know 600 kids
Yeah.
if your school, depending on your school. And their role is getting to know those students, but finding opportunities for those students to grow. So, one of my favorite ways that our teachers are practicing this right now is leading like a choice based studio where a student may learn how to use a material and follow it, following their own interests.
Mm.
They might return to a material over and over again throughout the year and develop some really interesting work out of it. And not all students in that classroom would be doing the same thing. That I would say is my favorite thing to follow right now and see how it's working in classrooms. And the pre-service educators at Michigan State are learning to think about this, choice-based model. They're also thinking a lot about social and emotional education and how art is a real opportunity for kids to learn about one another, express their own ideas, and experience the creative process.
We're talking about the importance of arts education in K through 12 students. Our guest is Megan Collins, an assistant professor in the Department of Art, Art History, and Design at Michigan State University. Now, Megan, this idea or this topic came to my attention in an article on MSU Today. Art is what we need right now. And you talk about the arts and having to prove itself worthy repeatedly to keep funding both at the state and federal levels. You pose the question, how is it decided that the value and necessity of art are consistently up for debate? I want you to unpack that just a little bit and just talk about, what your mindset was when you were asking these questions.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of a sad story that we hear over and over that funding for arts does get cut, and it's always a hard decision. I remember, being a college student in a teacher education class where we had to play with a budget. We were given a hard to solve
Wow.
school budget. And there were a lot of interest, like we weren't teachers yet, no one was a principal, but people talking about what can be cut and what can't be cut was really hard to hear, even before entering the school system. And now knowing that, state and federal budgets are not always valuing the arts, they're seeing it as something that could be supported by a community if it's desired, instead of seen as, a right that all people in Michigan should have access to arts programming, and that it is an important thing to be supported. I think that having a thriving arts community in any community throughout Michigan really boosts the morale of people. It brings people together. It helps you see one another, not just through business or work, but as people, because art is, it's human. Making visual art, of course, is my area, but music, dance, theater, all of the arts really bring us together. And I hope more people start to think about that. If you're thinking right now, oh yeah, I did have a great arts experience lately, how could you add more of those into your regular life to make that a part of your family's experience? I think that's kind of what I was hoping people would start to think about.
Yeah, and Megan, you also talk about the role of play and that being important as well. Why is play an important aspect of life to explore with kids? But then as well, why is it important for adults to remember the importance of play? So we're going to start with kids and teaching them the importance of play and how it can how it grows as you grow.
Sure. I mean, kids are going to play, so that's great. But if they come into school and they're told not to play, I'm not just thinking every classroom is super sterile and sad,
Yeah.
but when we come to an art classroom, I was, saying earlier that there's a wide variety of ways art is being taught, and sometimes the aspect of play is removed, in favor of making something pretty. So the idea of bringing art as a method of play, as part of your stance on art education, I'd say, it brings kids into this idea that, well, a material is just something to play with.
Yeah.
And when you're playing with something, you can test its limits, you can test its possibilities, and see what you might be able to do with it. I think focusing on play in art education, it's something a lot of art educators are doing. It helps open it up that you're not supposed to be making an end product. The product is, the process is more important than the product. So playing with art materials just to see what they can do is such a valuable opportunity for kids to be doing in a school setting where, if you say the goal is learning, well, we're learning through playing. And a lot of artists all throughout time, they haven't discovered new ideas or new ways to make things without playing. Play has been a central component of art making. I'd say probably forever. Can't speak to that, but I'm guessing. Um, and then you mentioned adults.
Yeah,
Same
like
thing.
Megan, do you think that adults forget the importance of play and that's why, maybe arts and culture aren't at the forefront of what's important at that particular moment?
Yeah, I hope they haven't forgotten, but
Yeah.
there is some evidence, right?
Yeah.
So we, I do meet a lot of adults also through my work, and people who say things like, "Oh, I'm not creative," or
Yeah.
"It must be so nice to be creative," or
Yeah.
it's kind of a thing that it's unfortunate to hear, because if they were thinking more of themselves as playful, oh, let's try that material, let's see what we can do with it. That is a really liberating experience, I think, especially if you're an adult and you think that's off limits for you now. If you think, well, playtime's over, I grew up, that's not true at all. So I think, one of the things I really value about, I'm working at the Art Museum at Michigan State, is we do have art supplies out all the time, with an invitation to everyone, not specifically children, to play with the materials and see, what will happen when they engage in that artistic process of just playing and exploring the materials, just seeing what you can do. And there's always people sitting there working. It is really cool. And I just kind of peek over their shoulder. Oh, that looks really interesting. But I'm glad to see there are a lot of adults making art. And I'd love everyone to talk about it a little bit more.
So, Megan, you talked a little bit about the autonomy, I guess, not autonomy, but the freedom that art and play gives. I do want to talk about the importance of art for kids, giving them autonomy and the freedom to express themselves and the freedom to have open minds about different things around them. That was the one thing that you really enjoyed as a teacher, is watching kids' brains kind of expand and seeing the things that they like to do that they didn't know that they like to do. So what can you say about the freedom that art gives kids?
The freedom that art gives kids. So once a child has enough opportunity, I think, to know that I can just try something and the pressure's off,
Yeah.
I think that is a really powerful thing for them to have inside them then going forward, that you can try new things, that you don't have to have a whole plan in mind ahead of time. You don't have to have sketches of the thing you're going to make
Yeah.
and plan out your plan. I think that freedom, I think it might help some of us, more jumping into new things, but especially getting to know new people or even consider new points of view. Um, there is a lot of pressure in schools on grades, and it does make sense. But I've seen it, in my own children, that being the focus of school is, it is unfortunate. And I think when there's more time for kids to be themselves, have that freedom to be themselves and show something that they know or try something out. Like you just said, maybe they don't even know they like a material
Yeah.
or that they could do something cool with it. I'm thinking about, we went to visit a school last spring. We visit schools all the time. And we were just doing our regular art project. We had some cool paint sticks and some panels and things to draw on. And there was a student who was sitting all the way back by the door, like he had this seat because the teacher needed him to be separated, that kind of
Yeah, of
seating
course.
arrangement.
That was me. I understand.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, I
no.
was definitely in the corner. Yeah.
Well, then I hope you like this story. So he was a really cool kid, but he started experimenting with the materials we brought in a way that none of the other kids in class were. And he started making these like prints and rubbings and doing it over and over. And, one of our team members, college student, noticed and just kind of checked in and was like, I'm so interested in how you decided to use these.
Yeah.
And the kid lit up. And he was so excited. His teacher came over and noticed. All the kids in class were like, wow, something great's happening with that kid.
Yeah.
So we don't always have to be there for those things to happen, but I'm excited that we get to go be in lots of different classrooms and kind of help, set the tone for something like that to happen by not saying we're all making the same thing today. We're going to say we're giving you all the same materials and we hope you all do something different, so that I think is hopefully a powerful message that kids are getting and the teachers that we visit so they can continue those kinds of lines of thought.
And Megan, staying in the classroom for a moment here and switching gears just slightly, but I do want to know about technology in the classrooms right now, especially art class. Is digital art a component of arts education now? Or are you all sticking to the basics and sticking to the classics of painting, pottery, etc.?
I just wish there was more time for everything because the more art materials that come up, the more you want people to practice being creative with them, So yeah, I know quite a few art teachers who they're embracing the digital art, design thinking. There's some classrooms that have iPads and are using them to make digital art. I personally really prefer hands-on. Things you can touch and squish and smear and get dirty, because I think that is also, a whole nother conversation about what happens when you do move learning to computers is kind of what you're missing out on doing with your hands.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's there. I think it's cool. It's definitely really cool. And I know kids are very engaged with digital art. And there's a lot of teachers doing good work with it too, but I don't want anyone to forget about clay and paint.
So, Megan, before we let you go, as a professor to future teachers and professors, especially when we talk about arts education, from your perspective and your experience, how do you encourage adults to play and get their hands dirty and do those type of things and just be creative and see themselves as creative individuals?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, everyone has it in you. So whatever it is that you feel like trying, just go for it. I would say, you can easily see a project plan online, or, people love Pinterest and I'm going to make that thing. But I'd ask people to stay away from that kind of making if they can, and just try I'm interested in this material. I have a bunch of yarn. I think I'll try to make something with it. Or I wonder if maybe I'd ask people to ask themselves, what if I used this one material I have in a way that I've never tried before? And, invite some friends over to say, we're going to play tonight. Let's see what we can do. Maybe you could invite everyone to bring one thing and then see how you can combine them to make something. It's just meant to be fun at first. And then if you decide you're really into something, you could make something that you spend more time on or more energy on. Once you kind of break through that, every artist even has that wall up of, I can't get started, but just getting started is the first step. Make a bunch of little things. You can call it your scribble stage. You could say, I'm scribbling with beads, or I'm scribbling with paint, and just kind of see what happens. Just allow yourself that space to not be perfect at something.
Megan Collins is a professor of art education at Michigan State University. Megan, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro and explaining to us the importance of art education, not just for kids, but for adults as well. Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, we'll hear the story of a local artist who was committed to pursuing her creative talents despite all odds. You all stay right there. We'll be right back. This is The Metro.